Hello, and thank you for joining me today for the impactful graphics for material handling breakout session. The purpose of this session is to share some things with you all that you can do to bring some life and connection to your drawings. So everything that we do today will just be for graphical purposes, meaning it's not going to affect any of your pricing or specifications for your drawing. This is all going to be just graphical changes that can create a more impactful rendering for your project. So today we're going to be working with a few different extensions. We're going to take a look at a couple things in the wall drawing tab, which everyone should have by default, along with the Material Explorer. Then we're going to look at the industrial equipment extension, which is free on the marketplace, and I'll highlight a few things there. And then we're going to check out the SketchUp extension, and in particular, we're going to be looking at the 3D warehouse and talk about how we can use those models in our drawings and how we can use edit graphics to adjust them as needed. Okay, so first things first, let's look at our floor. So in my drawing, I've got this conveyor, and my floor has been expanded based on where I added these pieces in my drawing. When you add things to your drawing, the default mode is to have this floor automatically expand. Now in the material handling version of CET, you should have a gray concrete floor as your default, but let's go ahead and kind of take a deeper look at this. So if I double click on the floor in my 3D view, that will actually pop up my floor properties. So lots of things that I can do here. If I wanted to have just like a full white sweep, I could actually turn off the floor. And then there is this auto expand option, so you can see where that square started, and then it has expanded for our whole conveyor line. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that checked. Now what I really want to focus on here is this material button. So now the first time that you open up your Material Explorer, it is going to take a little bit of time to populate all of your materials. You can download a material pack from the marketplace, but most of this material will come along with CET and whatever extensions you have downloaded in CET. Now I'll give this just a minute to think. You can see it's populating all of these different materials for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a new floor. Now typically we are going to want to use some kind of polished concrete for our floor. So when we get to our concrete, we'll be able to pick one of those. I'll give this just a second to finish thinking. And we'll actually have a concrete button on the side here because I do have a few different concrete materials. Now while this is thinking, I do want to tell you about something extra that you can do here. So these are going to be materials that come along with CET. If you have a specific material that you want to use for your warehouse, you can absolutely do that. So if maybe they were going to have a epoxy floor, we could find a swatch from the epoxy manufacturer, download that swatch, and we can actually set up a material using that swatch so we can have a floor in our drawing that will be accurately representing the space. So now I have concrete available here in my materials. So we've got all kinds of different options. I think this first one is what we've got for our floor currently, but maybe we want to do a polished concrete. Now the PBR materials are going to be more realistic, so for today's purposes I'm going to be leaning hard onto these PBR materials. They will take just a little bit longer to render, but they are a much more realistic finish. So maybe for this one we're going to do this polished concrete for the floor. So go ahead and select that, and what will happen is it will put a little paint bucket on my cursor when I come back into the drawing. So when I hover over my floor, you can see it's selecting this floor for me. If I left click on my floor, it will apply that material to my floor. Now I can close out of my Material Explorer now that I've got this floor changed and selected. Once I'm here, if this is a floor that I want to use all the time, I can actually do this save material as default. So then when I start a new drawing, I will have this polished concrete floor as my default material. Now, while I am here, if I went ahead and set up a new material, I could actually find those materials. So I know that I've got some epoxy materials. Let's go ahead and go up to all on the side here. So you see I've got a handful of different epoxy materials. So if I wanted to bring one of those in, I could actually select it, bring it in, and use that in my space. Now this looks like it was not a great swatch because it's got some shading in it. Let's see if any of these other ones look a little bit better. That one looks a little bit better. So all that I'm doing is I'm selecting the material, then selecting my floor. Let's try this last one. And then applying that material. Now how I set these up was in my material lab. I actually selected the texture that I downloaded. So off to the side, this is going to be a little bit deeper in the weeds than I'd like to be for this breakout session, but just to give you a quick sneak peek, in the primary color section, you're going to have this choice to have either a color where you can give it the RGB code or the hex code, or you can choose a texture. And if you pick a texture, you can actually browse for a specific texture. So maybe you've downloaded that swatch from somewhere, you can go ahead and select that texture and it will bring it in for you. And then from here, you can change the DPI, which is going to change how large that square is. So the smaller the number, the larger the squares here. So maybe for this one, let's do something a little bit smaller, something like that. So now you can see kind of our tile size. And then once we have that set where we like it, we can actually save it. So you can go up to File and then Save. Save it however you would like. So for these, I save them with their names. And then they will be available for you in your Material Explorer. So pretty quick and easy. If you have a specific color floor that you would like to use, you can do that. Now the same applies for the walls as well. So let's go ahead and close out of our Material Explorer, and we'll close out of our floor properties. And now we have this epoxy floor. Okay, the next thing that I want to show you is in the wall drawing tab. So it looks like two little walls coming together at an angle. So what we're actually going to look at is all the way up on the top here, we're going to look at our wall settings. Now when you open up your wall settings, you are going to have a default wall, which is going to have a bunch of undecided finishes. When you go through your tabs on the left, you can actually select a lot of these different properties. For the commercial interiors folks, they've got these smaller walls, little bit different properties. So this should be similar to what you're seeing if you're using material handling. So you've got these taller walls, and you've also got the option to turn on or off a base trim, that sort of thing. So I have one that's already set up. This is the one that I use for my drawings. So I've got 30 feet walls, and I've got a base trim, and I've got a 6-inch base trim on it. I tend to like to use a little bit higher of a base trim for these walls. We can also choose the trim type. So I'm going to be setting this up as a diamond plate sort of trim. So I want a rectangular trim because it's going to be kind of squared off on the edges. Now I can also come through and make some selections about my doors. So I can choose what type of door I would like. Same thing for my windows. This is going to be just all of the basic windows that I add. I can go ahead and change any of the properties with individual windows if I would like, but this is how I'm going to set up my windows to begin with. But this is the tab down here that I really want you guys to focus on. This is the Materials tab. And we're going to do the same thing for our walls that we just did for our floor. So we're actually going to look at the materials that are used. So if I go to my wall and then I click on the little ellipse, I can actually select a material. So for this, maybe I want a concrete wall as well, and maybe we are going to do something not polished. So we'll just go ahead and give it a basic concrete wall color. Now over here on the left, I can see what that's going to look like, so that looks good. If I flip through these, you can see that my preview is changing. We'll go ahead and make it a lighter wall. And then I've got this wall base trim. I can go ahead and select the ellipse. I can choose a material. So for this, I have this steel tread plate. So if I search for that steel tread plate, this is something that I set up earlier, but everyone should have available to them. So here is that steel tread plate. I've got that applied. So now I can also change materials on my doors and my windows if I would like. For what I'm doing today, I think we're going to go ahead and leave everything as white for our doors and our window frames. That will look all right. So these are the big two. Now, once you have these saved, you can actually save your wall settings if you would like. So you can save this as your default. You can actually set up a new scheme for this. This is actually in our scheme editor dialog window for the wall settings. That's what happens when you click on wall settings. It opens up the scheme dialog window. So if you would like to create several different schemes for different purposes, you can. So maybe you have a warehouse that has, you know, a specific style of walls or whatever the case may be. You can set up several of these so you can quickly and easily pop into them and draw with them. So I'm just going to make sure that the one that has all of those selections is the active tab when I start to draw. If I have existing walls already in my drawing, I can actually just click this all button, and that will apply all of these settings to the existing walls as well as all of the walls that I bring in from that point on. So now I've got this one selected. I can go ahead and close out of this window and then start to draw some walls. So if I wanted to draw a wall now, I'm just going to click on my straight wall button. And maybe I want to bring a couple walls in around this area. So there are our walls. You can see that they're very tall walls. And if I zoom in on it, you can see we've got that concrete, and then I've got that steel plate for the wall trim, and then I've got my epoxy flooring. Now, if I wanted to see what this would look like, I can do a quick render of this. I do recommend doing these quick renders every now and then just to make sure when you are working with graphics that whatever you are doing is going to behave how you intend. So to do this, we're actually going to click the quick render button. I'm going to click on the little drop down though, make sure that I'm in the correct setting. I want to use this product lighting. So product lighting is really good if you have an open area. It is really good for white sweeps, that sort of thing. It's going to be kind of a quicker rendering. This realistic rendering is intended for an enclosed area. So if I completely enclosed the space and gave it a ceiling and lights and that sort of thing, gave it windows, that's when I would use this realistic rendering. But if I have an open area, that's when I want to use this product lighting. So I'm going to go ahead and start there. And then if I click on the little camera itself, I'm going to go ahead and set up a view. So here I can see a little bit of my product, I can see my walls, and I can see that floor. I'll go ahead and click that little camera, and you'll see my progress bar on the bottom. So once this renders, I can see kind of how that's all going to look and then make any changes from there. So I'm actually going to check to see if this epoxy floor looks decent or not. And if it doesn't, then I'm going to go back to my polished concrete. So we'll go ahead and let this think for a minute while it is rendering. So just remember that you can set up these defaults and you can set up these schemes so that way as you're working, you really only have to do it once. You make sure that you're in that appropriate scheme, and then everything will be brought in with all of those properties already applied. So if you find yourself always going back after the fact and redoing things, so you're changing your wall materials in every drawing that you do to the same thing, or you change your floor material to the same thing every time. If you do it ahead of time, that is a good way to save some time. Okay, so that doesn't look terrible. I may or may not swap that floor back out to the polished floor, but I've got my wall base trim and my light concrete wall. That's going to be a good place to start. Okay, so now we have those in our drawing. The next thing that I want to show you is also going to be in this wall drawings tab. And so that's actually going to be this 3D text. So this I find is a fairly underutilized tool that comes along with CET. What this is going to do is it's going to put text up on our walls for us. So you do need to have a wall for it to go onto. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click onto the tool, and then if I hover near a wall, it's going to want to snap onto that wall. So I'm not going to worry about elevation to begin with. I'm just going to go ahead and get kind of general placement. Now I can do this in 2D or in 3D. So if I want to kind of line this up with the conveyor, I can. So I'm just going to go ahead and left click to place that. Then once it's placed, I can change the size by using this stretch node in the corner. I can actually make it larger or smaller. I can change what the text says. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and name it shipping. I can also change the font if I would like. If I want to turn it to the other side of the wall, I can. And then if I wanted to spin it around, I could do that as well by using the rotation nodes. So for this, I do want this to be up quite a bit higher on my wall. So I'm going to go ahead and manually adjust this elevation. So to change the elevation of something, I can use my page up, page down buttons on my keyboard. So I can use that page up, page down, and that will bump it up or down. Or if I have a specific height that I want it to be, I can just type that height in. So maybe I want this to be at 15 feet. So I've got something up high in the air. I've got this shipping way up high in the air. So we are doing a light wall, and I've got this 3D text now on my wall. It does stick out quite a bit, so I can change that if I would like. I can change the depth here. So maybe I only want it to stick out 2 inches, something like that. So it's still readable from the floor, but maybe doesn't stick out quite so much. Now the last thing that I'm going to want to do is change the material on that, because right now I can't really see it up here on the wall. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my Material Explorer. So now because I'm not in something that has a quick button to the Material Explorer, I'm actually going to go into my 3D component tab, and this has access to the Material Explorer. So from here, what I can do is I can select a color. So maybe I want this to be a darker color. So I'm going to go ahead and select color here. I'm going to remove my previous search. And let's take a look at the different colors that we have available. So maybe I just want this to be a darker gray. I can bring that over, hover over what I want to color. And when I hover over that, you can see that in my quick properties box up here, it will say text. So I'll go ahead and click once on that. And now my 3D wall image has my new color, and it's much easier to see. So that's a good way to designate areas within your warehouse. If you want to add some labels to your walls, this is a good way to do it. You can put as much text as you would want. If you're going to have a whole bunch of text, maybe the company's logo or something like that, or the company's name, you can actually do several of these in a row. So you could do something like, I'll go ahead and copy this and show you over here. Maybe we've got several of these. Let's pretend that it doesn't just say shipping, shipping, shipping. But if you wanted to do something a little bit more dynamic, you could bring these down a little bit. And maybe we'll bring this one down to 11 feet. So if you had, a bunch of different things that you wanted to put in, maybe you could do something like that. You could set this up however you would like. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these extra ones, but just know that there are a few ways that you can work with these different wall text tools. You do not need to be limited to just a color for that material. If you wanted to use a reflective material or something like that, whatever color you wanted to use, whatever type of material you wanted to use, you could do that, whatever is appropriate for your space. Okay, so we have this large label now. Again, you can resize this using the stretch nodes or the quick properties box. And you can adjust that height by using the elevation property or by selecting page up, page down on your keyboard. So there we have it. Okay, so that was our 3D text tool. So that is how that works. So the next thing that I want to show you is going to be in the industrial equipment extension. So next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to add some labels to our walls with these pre-made labels. So I'm going to use the industrial equipment extension. This is free on the marketplace. I highly recommend that you download this extension if you do not already have it. So this is going to be general extra things that you can add to your drawing that are appropriate for the material handling industry. So if we just do a quick look at this extension, you can see that we've got several different vehicles. So we've got forklifts, we've got different modes of transport for all of our material, right? Then we've also got several different machines. So we do have a robot arm here, we've got some desks, we've got a packing station, all kinds of different things that you can bring into your drawing. So we've got a baler, lots of different cool stuff here. We also have these pallets that we can bring in. We'll talk about those in a minute. We've got trolleys. We've got some basic components for racking. If you're not actually putting racking in your drawing and you just want the graphics of a little bit of racking, we do have these. However, I highly recommend that you use the racking extension. Even if you're just doing some graphical stuff, that's going to work a little bit better. This is really, really simplified. Then we do have some fans that we can put into our drawing as well. We've got some hanging garments, some parcels, a few different things that we can add here. We've got some ladders and crossovers, some fire protection, dumpster, and then a bunch of labels and signs. So what we're going to look at right now is going to be in this general signs area. So I'm actually going to pull in one of these shipping signs so we can look at the difference between our 3D text and this shipping sign. So if I go ahead and click on shipping, I can add it to my wall. So it's going to want to snap to a wall again. So I can just put this wherever I would like it. And then I can adjust the height, and the height is going to be how large this is. So maybe I want this to be 1.5 feet high. I can have this sign up on my wall. So once we go through a few of these and get some accessories and stuff in here, then I'm going to render this, and so you can see kind of what the difference is. They're both great options, so just know that you do have these different tools in your tool belt. Now you do have these labels, however, you cannot change what this says. So unlike the 3D wall text where you can make this say whatever you would like it to say, these are going to be what it says on here. But these are great labels. You've got exit signs, you've got all kinds of important information. So maybe we have a sign for a fire extinguisher. Maybe we've got a, you know, a larger sign, something like that. We can go ahead and do something like this here. We will do maybe elevation of 10 feet so everybody can see it. So I'm just kind of hovering until I'm at about 10 feet. And now the height, maybe I want this to be very large so people can see it from around the space. We'll go ahead and put this on our wall here. And it did pop to the other side of the wall there. So all I did was I put into my 2D view, I just grabbed it and stuck it next to the wall. And I could see in my 3D view that when I stick it next to the wall, it's showing here. So that is great. That's what we need. So now we've got this sign in our drawing that says, hey, there's a fire extinguisher here. So let's go ahead and find a fire extinguisher. So if we scroll back up a little bit, we've got these different types of fire protection. So maybe we've got a smaller fire extinguisher. We can go ahead and bring that into our drawing. I'm going to place it in my 2D view underneath my sign here. And then I'm going to, in my 2D view, adjust the angle. And then now, looking at it in my 3D view, I can see that it is way too low. So maybe we want this at 3 feet up off the ground, something like that. So we do have a fire extinguisher on our wall now. So adding these little bits and pieces in the background can really help to bring life to your drawing. So your focus is still going to be whatever component you're actually pricing out, whatever you're actually specifying. But when you see this, you see these kind of things in the background, it makes it more of a relatable space for your clients. Okay, so lots of really cool things here in the industrial equipment extension. There are a few things that I want to kind of highlight here. Let's take a look at this glitter box real quick. When we bring these in, some things have unique properties, so just always be aware of what's happening in the quick properties box. For whatever you're doing in CET, always be very aware of what's happening in this box. This has the option to have with a load or not, so we can actually put boxes or logs in this. So let's go ahead and put some boxes in there. So when I select boxes, it actually fills this up with boxes for us. So maybe we have a situation where, you know, we want to add a little bit of some kind of extra visual interest to our drawing. We can actually add something like that into our drawing. Now, along with that, if we wanted to add a palette, these palettes are going to behave similarly. They do have a unique property. So if we have a palette here, we can actually look at that quick properties, and you can see it's got this generate button. So if I click generate, that's going to give me this new dialog window, and I can choose the size of boxes or whatever type of material I would like to have on this palette. I can choose how many layers I would like. I can let it overhang or not, and then I can choose to apply. So once I hit apply, it's actually going to put those boxes on my palette for me. So that is a quick, easy way to bring some life to your space as well by adding in those palettes. And of course, you don't have to add any kind of material to those palettes. If you wanted to have just a single item, you can of course bring that in. So maybe we just have a single box here. We can bring something in and just pop it right on there. You don't have to generate those boxes, but it is nice to stack them all up and get them nice and tidy on that palette for you. So again, just some visual interest that you can add to your drawing. Probably not a great idea to add things that are like, you know, not OSHA compliant here, but whatever you need to do to make this more of a relatable space. Okay, so also in this extension, like I said, we've got all of these different labels. These are all sized using those quick properties. So all of these labels are going to behave the same here, but we do have packaging labels as well. So if we wanted to add a packaging label to a parcel, we could do that. So maybe we wanted to make sure that people know maybe this one is fragile. We can add these to our parcels. So these parcels in the industrial equipment extension are going to be able to be placed on our conveyors as well. So if we wanted to show that we were having some kind of material moving along the line here, we could add parcels to our conveyor line. And all that I'm doing is hovering over that conveyor line, and it is snapping to the correct elevation for me. So there we have it. There are some parcels on our conveyor line. We can also add, if we wanted to use maybe these poly bags instead, or the totes, we could use any of these things along the line to add that visual interest, depending on how the intended use of the space plays out. Okay, so there are a few things. Again, we got these exit signs, these kinds of things. They can add some good visual interest to your drawings. Now let's say that we want to add something else to our wall. Maybe we want to add some safety posters. So if we go into our wall drawing tab one more time, near where we had this 3D text, the last option is actually image on wall. So this is how we're going to add things like those safety posters. So let's go ahead and select that and bring that in. It does need a wall to snap to, so let's go ahead and just snap it right here. It's going to default to kind of a lower position. We can change that, of course. So maybe let's make this a little bit higher. Let's say that this is going to be at a 5-foot height, just so it's visible over that conveyor line. Now what's going to happen is it's going to say double click to insert image. So we can actually double click on that and then select whatever type of safety poster or whatever else you would like to have. You can select any image that you would like. So I just had a couple images saved here, some safety posters saved. So that's what I'm using right now, but you can really put in whatever you would like. So I do have a bank of just images for wall art. So if you wanted just art in your picture or in your drawing, you can do that. If you wanted to have maybe a company logo, you could put that in as well. So if you're designing for a specific client, you can put their logo in. If you know that they have a specific initiative that has public images, that sort of thing, you can download those images and add them as posters to their space. That can be a great way for people to connect with your drawing as well. So in this quick properties box, we do have the option to add matting, which is going to add a space around the picture. So then I can choose the matting width. So maybe for this I wanted a 3-inch mat. So now you can see that I've got this 3-inch mat around my picture. I can choose to have a frame on it as well. So maybe I wanted a large frame. I can do something like that. I can also change the materials that are being used here. So here's a dark metal. We'll go ahead and do something like that. We can change the matting material as well. If we wanted to do something else, we can change that here. And we can change some other options here as well. We can change the size, but this is going to be good for now. This is basic poster. So now we've got a safety poster here. So which type of worker are you? Are you a don't know, don't care kind of person? Or are you a trained and responsible worker? So lots of fun things that we can add to our drawing. Again, it's really impactful if you can do something that is going to resonate with your client. Now, keeping in that line of thought, the next thing that we can do is we can actually add in a monitor to our space. So to do this, I'm going to go to my Office Accessories extension. So the Office Accessories extension is available on the marketplace. This is going to have things like your laptops and monitors, printers, and general office accessories. As I scroll down here, you can kind of get a quick look at what's going on. This is nice too because this does have whiteboards that you can place in for, if you want to put in something for a bulletin board, you can do that. Those can be helpful. But for this example, I'm going to use this monitor. So I'm going to click once on that and bring it into my drawing. I'm going to put this up over that poster that we have. So I'm going to put it here in my 2D view so I can get it placed along a wall. It's not going to want to snap to a wall, so I need to just make sure that it's placed sort of next to a wall. So we're going to have a huge monitor up here that's got some information for whoever's working in this area. So let's set this to a 10-foot elevation, maybe even higher. Let's do like a 15-foot elevation. Now I can change the size of the monitor, so let's do a humongous monitor so it's visible from all over in our warehouse. And then I can actually change this wallpaper. So we've got a lot of different options that are available as presets. So maybe you have a certain thing that you would like to use here. I recommend that you flip through these, see if there's something that is appropriate for you. But you can also double click onto this monitor screen and then you can put in whatever you would like. So maybe I've got this warehouse, this dashboard for their different orders, order tracking, that sort of thing. Again, really impactful if you kind of know what sort of system the person you're designing for uses. You can actually try to mimic that. So this one I just screen clipped from the internet, just an example of a dashboard. I've got some different orders that need to be filled, that sort of thing. So we've got that up on the wall now. And just having that in the background, even without it being, super visible, it now makes the space seem more relatable. Okay, so we've got a handful of things in our drawing now. I'm going to go ahead and do this quick render one more time, and we'll take a look at how things are looking in our drawing. So while that is rendering, I do want to let you know that when you bring in laptops and that sort of thing, they're going to have the same quick properties. So if you have a desk area or some kind of maybe a receiving desk or something like that, you can put a laptop there and then you can do the same thing. You can double click onto the screen and put in whatever type of image you would like. So again, really, really impactful if you can screen clip the company's main page on their website and then add that sort of thing to their laptops. So here we go. So here's that monitor. We've got this shipping sign. And it's getting a little bit dark in the corner here, so I'm probably going to add a little bit of light to this section, but that's okay. I can do this in post-processing as well. I can brighten it up, so I'm not super worried about it. I do want this to be a fully enclosed space at the end. So at the end, when I go into my photo lab, I'm going to be using that realistic rendering, but for right now, I'm just doing a quick render to show me what all of these accessories are really going to kind of look like in my drawing. So I don't want to spend a huge amount of time having it process a quick render as realistic for right now. I mostly just want to make sure that all of these things are behaving how I would like them to. Okay, so it looks pretty good. So again, if we brought in a laptop, let's just say that we've got a laptop sitting here on top of this palette because somebody was walking by and they were like, oh shoot, I need to do something, you can double click onto that monitor screen. You can put whatever you would like on that monitor, and then it is available for you there. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this back out of our drawing, but that is a good way to add a little bit of interest. Okay, the next thing that we are going to talk about is back in our industrial equipment extension, we've got this robot arm. So I'm just going to show you as an example. We've got this robot arm available, which can be pretty cool. There are some unique properties with this robot arm. We can change the color, we can change the position to being extended or not, and then we can actually change the tool that's on the end. So if we wanted a welder instead of a clamp, something like that, we could make those adjustments. So I'm bringing this in to show you, maybe you are designing an area and you know that you have a very specific robot arm in an area. So maybe we've got a Fanuc arm, so we're going to go yellow, and we're designing and it's just not quite, you know, maybe we can do better. So we can actually take a look in the SketchUp 3D warehouse to see if we can find the actual robot arm that we're going to be using. So this would be, again, not anything that has any sort of pricing applied to it. It's just going to be for the graphical representation. So we just kind of want to show maybe what's happening in some other area. So let's go ahead and look at that SketchUp extension. So when you download the SketchUp extension, you don't actually have to have SketchUp at all. I personally don't have a SketchUp license at all, but I am able to use SketchUp, the 3D warehouse provided by SketchUp, which is a fantastic resource. So I've got this extension, and here in the extension, you can choose to bring files in. So maybe you have something already saved, SketchUp files already saved. You can export to SketchUp files, but this one right here is the one that we're going to be looking at. So this is a 3D warehouse. So when I click on this, it's actually going to open up the 3D warehouse for me. So this is available for anyone to use, and all that you have to do is sign in. So if you're new to this, you're just going to set up an account using an email address and a password. Really simple to set up, quick and easy. And then you've got your login ready to go. So it does not cost anything to do this. You just sign up for it. Okay, so there I am. I'm signed in. And then in this main section, we're just going to type what we're looking for. So maybe I'm looking for a robot arm. And then I'm going to press enter. Now the first tab is going to be products, and I don't necessarily want to find specific products. I just want to look at the models. So that's what we're looking at here. These are going to be the graphical models. So I've got a couple different things happening here. A couple things to think about when you are looking at your SketchUp models. Anybody can upload models to SketchUp, so there's no real like QA for any of these models. So you can see there's kind of a wild variety between these different models. There are a few best practices though. Generally speaking, we want to keep the size to under 1 megabyte, so this one's quite a bit larger, and we want it to be under 15,000 polygons, so this one's a little bit high. This one is massive. The more curvature and more detailed kind of graphical information you have in the model, the more polygons you're going to have. So this one's pretty simplistic. You can see it's got less polygons. So if we just scroll down, we can try to find something that looks appropriate for us. So I'm not really seeing the arm that I'm looking for, but if you found one, you can go ahead and click and bring that in. So let's go ahead and just check this one out. So if I click onto the actual image itself, it will take me to that page, or I can click on this download button and download it right away. But let's go ahead and take a look at this. I can choose to hover and view it in 3D, so I can actually turn it around to kind of get a better look at this thing. Otherwise, if I say, okay, this looks like something that might work for me, I can click this download button. And because I don't actually have SketchUp, it doesn't matter what version of the file I'm using. I'm always going to use the most up-to-date file. And then what's going to happen is it's going to move it into a temporary folder and then pop it right into CET's preview area for me. So give this a second, and now it will be here in my drawing. So I can actually left click and bring that into my drawing. So if you bring something in and it is not the size that you need it to be, you can actually scale it by using this stretch node on the top. You can make it larger or smaller, however you need to resize that. If you want to make it a specific size that does not have even scaling, you could turn even scaling off. So this is good if you bring in things like a plotter, that sort of thing that you know the actual dimensions of. You can adjust them using non-even scaling by turning that off. We can apply materials to this if we would like to. If we apply materials, we can also restore the original materials if we would like. So now let's say that I still want that Fanuc arm and I'm not, real happy with either of these ones. Maybe I've got a SketchUp file saved. So I actually have a favorite saved of something that I pulled off of SketchUp. So this is a 4-pack of robot arms that I was able to find. And here is my Fanuc arm that I want to use. It's this yellow guy right here. So this is the one that I actually want to have in my drawing. So when I brought in this SketchUp symbol, it came in with all 4 arms. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these other 2 arms that we're not going to be using here. Okay, so I brought that in, and this whole symbol came in as one thing. So if you find a SketchUp symbol that you really like, but it's got some extra stuff with it, which happens pretty frequently, we can change that. We can make adjustments to that using a tool within CET. So like I said, what we want is this yellow one. We want this Fanuc arm. So we're going to go ahead and delete everything else out of this symbol. So to do that, we're going to use our Edit Graphics. So this is going to be our Edit Graphics component tab, and I'm going to go to Edit Graphics Meshes. Now you've got 2 different kinds. You've got Edit Graphics Symbols and then Edit Graphics Meshes. So I want to do a little bit more kind of intense work with this. I'm going to be removing whole chunks of this, so I'm going to be editing those meshes. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to make whatever the symbol that I'm adjusting editable. So this set revert section has this make editable. So I'm going to left click on that, and then I'm going to select the symbol that I want to make editable. So now this has been selected. Now I can actually make some edits to this. So I'm selecting into open space to deselect that whole thing. If I look at this now, I can actually select different parts. So by making it editable, I have basically made it so I can adjust this and delete parts and pieces as needed. So what I can do is I can actually come over to delete, and I can delete out whatever I don't want in this symbol. So now I'm going to just delete everything here that I don't want. If there are lots of tiny little parts and pieces, sometimes it does take a minute to kind of keep up. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove all of those things that I don't need. And then from here, I can use that single arm. So what that is going to look like, for the interest of time, I've got one that I've set up earlier. So I've got this Fanuc arm. So I just went ahead and deleted all of those little things that were not part of my original Fanuc arm that I want. And this is what that's going to look like. So here's one that I prepared earlier. So when you're working with deletion, it's nice to work in 3D as well, so you can kind of see all of these little bits. You can go through and delete all of these parts and get rid of everything that you don't need. Just make sure that you are not deleting anything from the thing that you intend to keep. So you can go through and make these adjustments to that symbol. And then what I've done is I've actually saved this as a favorite. So I do recommend, if you do a bunch of work with a symbol, that after you have done that work, you go ahead and save it as something else. So you can save that as a favorite, or you can export it as a SketchUp file for later use as just a SketchUp file. To save something as a favorite, once you've made those adjustments, you can actually right click on it and then save as favorite. And then to recall those favorites, it's just going to be F on your keyboard. And that's going to open up your favorites file. And for this one, I had just named it my Fanuc arm. So now I have this Fanuc arm in my drawing, and it is ready to go for me. So I can go ahead and delete this other symbol because I've got this one already cleaned up. And let's just go ahead and bring it over here, and we'll do one more quick rendering of what this is going to look like. Obviously, we're not going to have a robot arm just sitting out there in real life, but I just wanted to show you how you can work with those 3D warehouse models. So it is always a good idea to use everything that you can from the extensions within CET, if possible, because these are going to be they're going to work the best with the program, right? But if you don't see something specific that you need in any of the extensions, so especially in this industrial equipment extension, if you don't find what you're looking for, you can pull models off of that 3D warehouse, which can be a really nice handy resource. And when you do that, you're not limited to the models that are exactly perfect. So for example, if I look back at this robot arm search, I've got like this arm has a base with it. This is probably not something we would use, but if you have something like this arm has other components with it as well, and maybe you just want the specific arm, you can delete those other bits that you don't need. So like this one has a parcel with it, and maybe you don't want that parcel, maybe you want to use our parcels, you could delete that out of that model. So you don't have to find something that's exactly perfect. You can make adjustments, and the deletion is not the only thing that you can do with that. You can do a lot with that edit graphics. We do have help articles for edit graphics as well, but you can do rotation, you can move parts and pieces, we can split meshes and really fine tune these different parts, these different models. So I invite you to explore that as well. But don't feel like you are pigeonholed to just things that are exactly perfect already. But if you do a bunch of work on a model, I do recommend that you save it as a favorite, so that way you don't have to do that work again. So we're just going to go ahead and let this render one more time, and we'll see how this turns out for us. And that is going to wrap up everything that I have to show you today. So we got a couple minutes for questions at the end of our session here. So if anybody has any questions, I would love to hear them, and we can kind of talk about them. And I hope that this was insightful for you. I hope that I showed you a few things that maybe you weren't aware of. Here we go. There is our quick rendering with our accessories in the background. So adding those parcels to the line really brings that flavor. You know, adding some visual interest in the background really helps to let the clients connect with the space and really understand what that space is going to be. Sometimes when we design for warehouses, we're designing, you know, pretty bland. And while it gets the point across for what we're actually specifying, it might not get that connection that you want to get the bid. You know, if you're working on a huge project, this can be the make or break for you. Unfortunately, sometimes the decision makers are driven by these sorts of things. So anything that you can do to kind of level up your drawings, kind of step up your game, we want to take advantage of it, right? So here are a few things that you can do to help brighten up your drawing and bring some life to it. All right, so there's that last rendering. And if there's any questions, I would love to hear them. All right, so that wraps it up. Thank you so much for joining me today with my Impactful Graphics session. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to destiny.trowbridge@configura.com. I would love to touch base with you, and if you have any questions, love to help you sort through those questions and troubleshoot with you. I'm always looking to learn new things myself, so please feel free to reach out, and have a great rest of your day.